33. Eating supper at my grandparents' house is a unique experience. First of all, the old one believes that people shouldn't eat regular meals 3 times a day. She thinks that's unhealthy. She thinks you should eat something whenever you're hungry. This means that the people who live in the apartment just wander into the kitchen whenever they want and take some food and eat it there, or eat it while walking around, or settle down someplace and eat. The old one is almost constantly in the kitchen, which is surprising when you consider that she believes everything ought to be eaten raw. So there's no actual cooking. I don't think she even has a stove. I know I've never seen one in use in her kitchen. But she has blenders, juicers, mixers, a grain mill, and 2 refrigerators. When she has all the electric equipment going at once and the 2 refrigerators humming, it sounds like a shipyard, and the lights flicker throughout the rest of the apartment house. She had a really interesting soup that the night Aln Mndlshn and I came for supper. It had ground up cherries and celery and a raw buckwheat groats in it, and a lot of other stuff I couldn't figure out. She also gave us something called sampa that Madame Zelanawa made. It was okay. As usual, there was a salad with everything in the world in it, and big gobs of homemade yogurt on top. She also served bean sprouts with sesame seeds and garlic and vinegar. Aln Mndlshn liked that best. I'm not saying that I'd like to eat at the old one's house every day, but it isn't bad. I do feel sort of good for hours after I've eaten every time I go there. Aln Mndlshn had 3 helpings of everything. Just as we were having our dessert of unbaked sesame, honey, coconut, carob, vegetable protein, cookies, and cranberry juice, Uncle Boris walked in. He helped himself to a big bowl of raw oats with cashew nuts and carrot syrup, and sat down at the kitchen table with us. "Hello, boys," he said. "How's the psychic investigation?" "That's what we came to talk to you about," I said. "You see, we met this Venusian." "No kidding," Uncle Boris said. "A Venusian? That's really interesting. I met a Saturnian once, but we never got to be friends. Kept on trying to eat my wristwatch. Was this Venusian friendly?" "He was very friendly," I said. "He sold us a key to Yojimbo's Japanese-English dictionary that decodes instructions for getting in touch with parallel planes of existence, like invisible worlds. In order to make contact, we have to find a place called Herschelsheimer's Oriental Gardens, but it seems to have vanished. We can't find anyone who knows where it is or was. We were hoping you'd be able to help us." "Sure, I remember Herschelsheimer's Oriental Gardens," Uncle Boris said. "Aln Mndlshn and I couldn't help jumping up and down in our chairs like little kids." "I used to go there a lot years ago," my uncle continued. "It was really nice. You see, Lance Herschelsheimer was a fine man. He was a traveler and a botanist and a collector of wonderful things. His garden was a combination park, museum of rare tropical Asiatic plants, and a nice place to have tea. He must have been very rich, because the place went on, and he had planted big trees, full-grown ones, from all sorts of distant places. Just getting them here alive and well must have cost a fortune. There were statues made of bronze and stone, too, Buddhas and scenes of Asian village life. He had Japanese sand gardens and tea-houses and pagodas. Oh, it was a wonderful place to go for a walk. Years ago. You know, I made a movie of that place. Would you like to see it?" We said we would like to see it very much. But did Uncle Boris remember what happened? Did Uncle Boris happen to remember where Herschelsheimer's Oriental Garden had been? "You know, I'd been trying to remember that," he said. "It wasn't right in town, but somewhere out in the country. You had to take a long streetcar ride to get there. Maybe it'll come back to me while we're watching the film." We followed Uncle Boris to his bedroom, which looked more like a storeroom. There were stacks and piles and mounds of all sorts of things: books, geological specimens, camera equipment, stuffed birds, hiking equipment, bundles of letters, clothing, paintings, tools, everything. Uncle Boris began dragging large cardboard cartons out of his closet. They were full of reels of movie film. On the side of each carton, Uncle Boris had written in black crayon the title of the films in the box. He dragged out 5 or 6 cartons, and finally found the one with a film called Herschelsheimer's Oriental Gardens, 1939. Uncle Boris was pretty old. He wasn't my regular uncle, like my father's brother or my mother's uncle. I think he was the old one's brother, or maybe he was the old one's uncle. She called him Uncle Boris. He talked with an accent. Now, he said, let's get to the projector set up in the dining room, and we'll have a look at the film. The very first shot in the film was a picture of a street sign. You could read the names at both cross streets, Newsombaum Street and Utopia Avenue. Those are out near my house, I shouted. Well, I told you Herschelheimer's Oriental Gardens were out in the country, Uncle Boris said. When this film was taken, West Kangaroo Park did not exist. It was all woods and dairy farms, and Herschelheimer's Oriental Gardens. Now watch the film. The camera panned from the street sign to a big neon sign on a tall post. The sign wasn't turned on. It was daytime, but there were painted letters behind the neon tubes. Herschelheimer's Oriental Gardens. There was no doubt. We knew where the Oriental Gardens were located. Then we saw pictures of beautiful trees and flowering plants. There were neat gravel paths leading along the wonderful trees and bushes. Then we saw Uncle Boris, looking a lot younger, dressed in a light brown suit with a straw hat, and one of those flat ones and spats. He had to explain to us about spats. They're like leggings, only they just cover part of your shoe. They didn't make any sense to us. Uncle Boris said they were snappy. He also had a tie with a palm tree on it. He said it was hand-painted. Uncle Boris, in his suit and straw hat and spats and hand-painted tie, walked straight towards the camera, which didn't move. The last thing you saw was his nose. Then the movie showed us more of the beautiful plants and a pond. Then you saw Uncle Boris again, this time in a light blue suit, with different spats and a different hand-painted tie, same straw hat, walking into the camera again. Then you saw the gardens. Then you saw a black and white photograph in a little gold frame hanging in the leaves of some strange plant. You couldn't see what the picture was because of the reflection in the glass. It looked like a person or people. Then you saw Uncle Boris in still another suit, spats, and hand-painted tie, walking into the camera. Then foliage. Then another black and white photograph hanging among the trees. You still couldn't see what the picture showed, but you could see it was different from the first. Then Uncle Boris, then foliage, then a statue of a Buddha, then foliage, then black and white photos in little gold frames, then foliage. It went on and on. It was strangely interesting. Well, it wasn't interesting, but it was nice to look at. It was restful. Uncle Boris couldn't explain why the different suits or what was in the black and white photos. It's a work of art, he said. You don't have to know what it means.